بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والعاقبة للمتقين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وإمام المرسلين سيدنا ومولانا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه أجمعين. اللهم فقهنا في الدين وعلمنا تأويل وجعلنا من خيرة أمة سيدنا محمد عليه أفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم. اللهم لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. We seek Allah's protection from knowledge that does not benefit, from a heart that has no khushu, from a nafs that's never had enough, from an eye that does not tear, from a dua that's not heard. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome to Ramadan Radio Wolverhampton on 87.9 FM. Not only that, on RamadanRadioWolves.com you can listen all over the world, and on Facebook it's streaming out live now. So please share as much as possible, send the message around, so inshallah everyone can benefit. We make dua that everyone is benefiting as much as possible from this blessed month of Ramadan, and we've got to that stage where we start to ask, where has Ramadan gone? Okay, so we're on our fourth show. We got one more show to go, inshallah, next week. But we've reached what they call the business end. Okay, the business end of Ramadan. The third Ashura, the last 10 days of Ramadan. Okay, so we've got 10 or 9 days to go. Okay, what I would say is that don't be disheartened if you've not made the most of Ramadan so far, because now is an opportunity that you can rectify that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continues to give you opportunity after opportunity. He gives us excuse after excuse for His mercy, for us to kind of make the most of His mercy. Okay, so even if up to this point you feel that you've not done really much in Ramadan, you've hardly done anything, now is the time to rectify that. Okay, we're reaching the last 10 days, and there's a blessed 10 days that some say that, when it's mentioned in the 10 nights in the Quran, they mention about these 10 nights. Some say it's the 10 nights of Muharram. Well, what do? We can take them both. We can make the most of both. Okay, so we can make the most of these 10 nights. We can make the most of the 10 nights of Muharram as well. Okay, now what's the key here? The key here is we're looking for that night of power. Okay, so people that are sitting at the Itikaf, they sit at the Itikaf. Why? Because they're in continuous worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and whichever night that night of power falls upon, they'll be sitting in the Itikaf, and they'll have found that night. And that's one of the blessings of Itikaf. Okay, so just quickly before we move on, actually, I want to mention about it. Laylatul Qadr, the night of power, special for the whole Ummah. Okay, special for the whole Ummah. At times people make that mistake of they just put it down, nail it down. Okay, we put all our eggs in one basket. So when I just mentioned that have you made the most of Ramadan? If you haven't, these are your opportunities. 10 nights or 10 days, just make the most of it. People think, yeah, that's a bit too much as well. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ says find it in the odd night. So people think, okay, maybe that's too much as well. And yeah, there's a big indication that it's on the 27th night. Everything's on the 27th night. Don't make that mistake. Make the most of all 10. Make the most of all 10. And you make the most of all 10 by doing some simple actions. Okay, so the simple things you can do on all 10 nights is that give a bit of sadaqah. Give some charity. £1. Just put £1 in the sadaqah box. That's it. Every night for 10 nights. £10. Okay? Now, read 2 nafils on every night. Okay? Read some Quran on every night. Make dua on every night. Simple actions. Small actions. That won't take much time. But you'll benefit so much more. Okay? Where we mentioned the night of power, and he says that the night of power is equivalent worshipping for 1,000 months. That's not actually accurate. It's more than 1,000 months. How much more? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all merciful. He'll give whatever He wants to give based on your sincerity. Okay? But it's almost like a minimum we're there, but it's more than 1,000 months. Okay, and we see this, and I mentioned, we spoke last week about the mercy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and I said we can go on and on and on when it comes about the mercy of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, because every time the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would look for opportunities where he would think, you know what, this is too hard for my ummah. This is too hard for my ummah. How can I make it easy? You know, how can I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make it easy? This is going to be too difficult for my ummah. How can I make this easy? When we make this easy? Remember I mentioned about so many hadiths that starts, if I did not fear hardship on my ummah, I would have said, and then ... And the night of power. Can I just check actually to make sure that I am live? The mic is live. Sorry, I think just give me a second. Just want to make sure we are live. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, I think hopefully everything should be working now. Okay, so we were just basically speaking about we were speaking about the night of power, and we spoke about how you can make the most of the last 10 days or last 10 nights. And I apologize actually because I think maybe we probably weren't on live for certain vigils. But anyway, we can make the most of these blessed nights. Okay, make the most of them. Give simple. So I said that we could do every night give £1 charity. Every night give read some Quran. Every night make dua. Okay, every night read 2 nafils, or simple actions. We speak about the night of power being more than 1,000 months. Okay, and the Prophet ﷺ, the way it came about was that the Prophet ﷺ realized that there were ummahs before him that they lived longer, so they had an opportunity to worship longer, okay, and do ibadat longer, so they gain a lot more. So the Prophet ﷺ said, you know, he wanted something for his ummah, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gifted this night for him. So this is the thing you see with the Prophet ﷺ, and we mentioned so many times that he's always thinking, every moment he was thinking about his ummah. Every moment he's thinking about his ummah. I can benefit his ummah. Okay? How can we not love a person like this? And I mentioned that, and I've mentioned it so many times, that the purpose of these shows was to love the Prophet ﷺ. And I'm not going to apologize for repeating this so many times, but if you have the love for the Prophet ﷺ, everything else will kind of fall in place. When you love someone, you look to imitate them. You follow their footsteps, and if you're following the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ, you're doing everything in the best way possible. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be pleased with you. You're worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You're doing what you were sent here to do. Okay? We'll see the mercy of the Prophet ﷺ. You know, the Prophet ﷺ was so merciful during his life, and he said that, there's benefit from me this world, and even when I pass away. And the Sahaba said, well, we understand this when you're alive, but how is it when you pass away? He goes, your deeds will be presented to me. And when they're presented to me, I make dua for you, I'm happy. And when something bad is presented to me, I make dua for you that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgive you. Okay, constantly, he's thinking about his ummah. On Judgment Day, when everyone's going around, it's going to be him that is going to be interceding for us. Okay, he's going to be interceding for us. How can you not love someone like this? That always thinking about you. How can you not love someone like this? Okay, always pleading Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for his ummah. Okay, so this is what we're talking about, and the night of power, we make the most of it, inshallah. Simple things will go a long way. I just want to bring about here because there are many women that kind of will probably be thinking, you know what, there's those that they think that, you know, certain women will not be praying on their haid during this night or during this period, and they feel that they're missing out. And remember this, that the reward is in the fulfillment of the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So you get reward from a non-action. The fact that you're fulfilling a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with the Sharia has given you reason to do, you are getting reward for that. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving you reward for that. This is the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So don't think of it like that. Look at fasting, for example. Fasting is fasting is a non-action, so you're not doing something. Okay, you're not doing something, and you're getting reward for it. And that's the same for women as well. That I remember so at times in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the women would come to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and say, "Ya Rasulullah, this is unfair. The men get to go." The men get to go to jihad, the men get to do X, Y, and Z, and we like at certain periods in the month where we can't pray, we can't read Quran, etc. It's unfair. The men are getting ahead of us, Ya Rasulullah. The men are getting ahead of us in good deeds. They were all competing for good deeds. The men are getting in front of us, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, given reassurance that listen, fulfilling the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Doing an action where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has commanded you to do, that's worship as well. Okay, that's worship as well. Okay, it's important. So let's just take an example here as well for women, that you can still be doing, you can be performing plenty of dua. Okay, if your intentions are sincere and you kind of wanted to worship so much, there was so much you want to do on this night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you that reward, inshallah. Okay, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you that reward, inshallah. Okay, so before we move on, I apologize for the start, for those at the start that missed some of one of the buttons was not connected. We're just going to cover off the last week's riddle, and then we can move on. So last week's riddle was a journey between two beloveds. Don't worry, Allah is with us. A journey that marked a new establishment. Okay. A journey between two beloveds. Don't worry, Allah is with us. A journey that marked a new establishment. And the answer to that is, of course, migration, hijrah. Okay. So a journey between two beloveds, the Prophet ﷺ and his beloved Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq radiallahu ta'ala anhu, they set out together on this migration. When everyone was going, I think it came about that the Prophet ﷺ spoke that I think Abu Bakr Siddiq would always say that, "Oh, Ya Rasulullah, can't do you give me permission to leave as well?" And he would smile and tell him, wait, maybe Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has planned a better companion for you. Okay, so they set off together. When they set off, obviously they went the wrong direction, because just to put the Quraysh off, because they were tracking them down. And they settled and they went to this cave, Cave of Thor. And when they were there, the Quraysh actually got some trackers, some very, very good trackers to track them down. And the trackers actually tracked them down right to the cave. And the tracker stood there and he said, "Look, they're in the cave." And the Quraysh, the leaders, they're standing there. They're mocking the tracker, saying, "You think we're fools? Can't you see there's a pigeon-laid nest there? There's a spider that's the web of a spider's there, so that's not been broken anyway. Okay, how could they be there? Okay, so they're actually standing there, and saying Abu Bakr Siddiq, they're saying, Ya Rasulullah, if only they were to look at their feet, or if only they were to look at their shoes, they would see us. And the Prophet ﷺ says, do not fear, do not fear, for Allah is with us. And Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq was worried for the Prophet ﷺ. Not for himself, he was worried for the Prophet ﷺ. When there's an event took place in the seerah that Sayyidina Abu Bakr Siddiq was beaten so badly he fainted. And when he awoke, the first thing he said, where's the Prophet ﷺ? How is he? So he's worried about the Prophet ﷺ. And then obviously you got after the migration, how the state of Medina was established. Okay? And inshallah, at the end of the lesson, at the end of the show, we will do another riddle. So, as I mentioned, that the purpose here is to love the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, and there's so many things I've mentioned. So, after listening to all this, how is that somebody, we don't love the Prophet ﷺ? Sayyidina Ali, at the end of all his description, just end up with saying, you know what? He said, look, we never saw before him or after him anything like him. That was it. Was just like we never saw anything before him or after him like him. Okay, the more we get to know him, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the more we love him. Okay, And we get this when the Prophet ﷺ says that not one of you perfectly believes until he loves me more than his parents, his children, and all of humanity. Imagine that now. Do we actually love the Prophet ﷺ that much? Because he said, none of you kind of perfectly believe. So perfect your religion until he loves me more than his parents, his children, and all of humanity. And we need to look at him, and we need to look at the different stages of his life, his generosity, his bravery, knowledge, humility, piety, etc. There's a lot of things that we look at. And knowledge of him inevitably leads to love for him. Okay, so we need to form a picture of the beloved to ensure our minds, that when someone asks about the Prophet ﷺ, our minds do not stay blank. We know the physical features. It's from the Sunnah to describe other prophets. So the Prophet ﷺ would describe other prophets. So then he would compare them to certain Sahaba, so that we kind of form a picture in our mind. We can't draw them, but we form a picture in our mind. We've given so many descriptions of the Prophet ﷺ, so detailed description of the Prophet ﷺ, and we should know that. Okay, we should know that. Say Abdullah Masud radiallahu anhu, when he went to Cuba to teach, he would go pale when mentioning the Prophet ﷺ. And when asked why, he said, look, because I know who I am talking about. He knew who he was talking about. Every time his ﷺ was mentioned, it would kind of electrify them. Okay, so we need to ensure our minds are not blank when his ﷺ is mentioned. Okay. So, because we're probably short on time as well, we kind of move on quite swiftly, but there are so much more that we can kind of speak about here, about the love of the Prophet ﷺ, but I think I'm kind of just hitting the key messages there. So last week we spoke about the mercy of the Prophet ﷺ. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. We did not send you except as a mercy to the world, so all of creation. Okay, so mercy to all of creation, not just Muslims, not just humans. Everything we described how the Prophet ﷺ was the mercy for humans, for non-Muslims, for animals, for trees, stones, everything. He's a mercy, and there's so much that we can speak about it. I just mentioned briefly at the start as well. We can go on and on and on. If we were to have just all of these shows and just on the mercy of the Prophet ﷺ, there would still not be enough. Okay? He showed tremendous mercy, and even when we speak about today, because today we're going to speak about the Prophet ﷺ as a family man. And even when we speak about the Prophet ﷺ as a family man, within there you see mercy as well. Okay? Within there you see mercy as well. So the Prophet ﷺ as a family man then. First and foremost, you've got him helping his uncle. Okay? Him helping his uncle at a... So when he got up to that age where he could work, etc., he knew straight away his uncle was poor, and he had so many children. So he decided, and he took his other uncle, and he said, "Look, both of us should take one child away from him, and we look after them." And at the young he decided, and he took Sayyidina Ali, radiallahu anhu. Okay, and so he kind of Sayyidina Ali was almost what you call, although he was his cousin, but it was almost like his adopted son. Okay, he took care of Sayyidina Ali and he raised him. And this was the Prophet ﷺ kind of, as a family man, realizing, and again this is mercy as well, being shown here, that he realized his uncle is struggling, so we should do the most to help him out as best possible. Okay, there were other, he had Abu Lahab was his uncle who was rich, but he was kind of almost distanced from these law, almost. But the Prophet ﷺ saw his struggle of his uncle. And he tried his best to help him out as much as possible. So we got to look at ourselves as well. I mean, I know we always speak about helping out, but first and foremost, you have family around you. Okay, and this is one of those things in zakat as well, that it's you should be giving zakat close to home first. So even if it's within your, let's say, extended family, because there are certain people that you cannot give zakat within your family, but your extended family, for example, your parents, right? Obviously, you should be taking care of your parents. You should be giving them zakat. They don't qualify for your zakat, but you got extended family that you can give zakat to. And if your extended family if your family is struggling, then first and foremost, you should be giving your zakat to them. Okay, you should be giving your zakat to them, and this is the thing there. So when it comes to for us, the lessons we learn from here is that, look, take care of families around you. In that day and age, we feel it's a, what would we call, you're doing someone a bit of a favor. I'm helping you with this. I'm expecting a bit of favor back as well. My personal view is that when it comes to family, there's no kind of favor when it comes to family. I'll help my family members and I expect the same from them, when it comes about, it's not a case of I'm helping them because I'm helping them, I'm expecting them to help me. No, it's just natural because we're family. It should be given that we help each other out. Okay. You also have the Prophet ﷺ as a family man with his bond with Sayyidah Khadija, his first wife, radiallahu anha. And it was absolutely beautiful. And when I was covering the seerah, I did a whole part on Sayyidah Khadija. And there's so much more that can be said as well. Okay. So his bond with his beloved wife, Sayyidah Khadija, radiallahu anha. So, when we talk about Sayyidah Khadija, radiallahu anha, remember all this, remember who she was, what she had. Sayyidah Aisha, radiallahu anha, talking about Sayyidah Khadija, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam would always talk about Sayyidah Khadija. Okay, and Sayyidah Aisha almost kind of got a bit, why is it that you're always talking about this woman where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this was obviously she had passed away at this time, we're talking about later on, why are you always talking about her when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you a wife that's younger, more beautiful, etc. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam got upset and he says, look, don't say anything bad about Khadija. She supported me when no one else supported me. She was my strength and my comfort when I had nowhere else to turn. And I swear by Allah, she was the best woman of her time. Okay, she was the best woman of her time. Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anha said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, I fell in love with you due to your good character and truthful speech. And she said that you surpassed my expectations on both. Okay, he loved and respected anyone linked with Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anhu, even until much later in his life. So as a family man, and this is one of the things you say, you because he loved her so much, anyone that was linked with Sayyidah Khadija, even up until later on, he would kind of show so much love and respect for them. Okay, he would stand up for them. He would give them kind of gifts, etc. That was the attachment he had. The conquest of Makkah, he told the Sahaba to pitch a tent next to Sayyidah Khadija's grave. Okay, he told him to pitch a tent to Sayyidah Khadija's grave where he spent his time. So he's conquering Makkah. He's the leader here. Okay, conquering Makkah here, with 10,000 strong army. He says, look, pitch a tent next to Sayyidah Khadija, his beloved wife. He never forgot about his beloved wife. Okay, this was the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam as a family man. Okay, then we take lessons from that. When you have his wife later on, Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha, on the day of Eid actually, and we're going to inshallah talk next week about Eid, but I just wanted to mention this event. On the day of Eid, Sayyidah Aisha spoke about how she wanted to go to the masjid to see these Abyssinians who were doing their the Eid dances etc. within the masjid, and they had the spears and the shields, etc. Obviously within modesty they were doing it, so nothing haram was getting done, but she wanted to see that. And she said to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was lying down, he got up and he said, come on then. So the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the way he's described, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam stood there, okay, and she stood right behind him on his right shoulder, and she put her blessed kind of chin on his shoulder, so kind of the cheeks rubbing there, and she's watching. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says to them, continue with what you're doing. And she's there watching. And then the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam says to her, have you had enough? And she says no. So it's almost like she's trying to test, okay, how long can we go on for? Okay, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was patient. He says, fine. After a while, he asked her again. He noticed she's getting tired, and he says, have you had enough? And again she says no, and he says to them, no, continue. And then the third time, obviously after a while, he turned and said, okay, now have you had enough? And she said, yeah, okay, now we've had enough, let's go. Okay, this is the beauty of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how he was with his family members. Okay, he went about and out about, and she made a request to him, and there was nothing wrong with what she was saying, and he did his level best to keep her happy. Okay, he did his level best to keep her happy. We're running down on, actually we're going to go on to some ad breaks now, so we'll kind of before I move on and continue to speak about the Prophet ﷺ as a family man, we'll kind of take a pause there. And inshallah, when we get back, we will speak more about him and different variations in how he was with wives, how he was with children, etc. So this was him, and these are the point of saying all this is how we can learn from all this and how we can then apply this to our lives, because we want to be applying it. We want to be following in the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ in the best way possible. So inshallah, we will take a short ad break and we'll continue in a few minutes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Rasulullah. Welcome back to Ramadan Radio Wolverhampton, 87.9 FM. Also on RamadanRadioWolves.com worldwide. Also live streaming on Facebook. Apologies for the start where there may have been some silence on the radio. There's some technical problems. Normally that means that the human has messed up. There's a human error whenever they say technical problems. But anyway, inshallah everything is running fine now. And we will continue. And we were speaking about the Prophet ﷺ as a family man. And another event I want to mention here is a time when Sayyidah Aisha, so they were traveling, the Prophet ﷺ was traveling, and he was traveling with Sayyidah Aisha, radiallahu ta'ala anha, and he said to the rest of the Sahaba, you guys continue forward. And he made Sayyidah Aisha stay behind. And he said, look, let's have a race. Okay. And the way she described it, she says, look, I did not have much flesh on me then. Okay, as in I was skinny, she goes. And remember, she was really young. And the Prophet ﷺ, she was really young. So they had a race and she won. And then she described many years later, and the way she described it was that I had put on some flesh. So she's saying I would put on some weight. And the Prophet ﷺ, let's have a race again. Okay. And they have a race again. And he beats her. And he said, this is for that one. This is for the last one. And it could also be that actually the first time round, with the way the Prophet ﷺ is, that he actually let her win the first time round. That was the beauty of him. He showed his love and affection. Okay. We get all of these things, these little things that we can pick up and learn from. Okay. We have once Sayyidina Umar radiallahu anha asked permission to enter. So Sayyidina Umar came to the house of the Prophet ﷺ and he knocked on the door and he shouted, do I have permission to enter? Also there wasn't doors, it was just curtains, but he said, do I have permission to enter? And inside he could hear noises, kind of loud voices of women, as in the wives, or maybe there were other women with the wives of the Prophet ﷺ. And they were speaking loudly. And soon as Sayyidina Umar entered, you could see they were rushed behind a kind of the veil, like a curtain. And the Prophet ﷺ, he started smiling. Okay, he started smiling, and Sayyidina Umar said, Ya Rasulullah, I could hear loud voices. And he said, yeah, it was women. And he says, oh, you who making hard for yourselves. Is this how you speak to the Prophet ﷺ? And then when you see me, you kind of go quiet and scared. Why it's him that you should be wary of, and you're speaking to him like that. But when I come, you go quiet. And they say, yeah, but we do that because we do that because that's the Prophet ﷺ. Whereas you're kind of fiercer and etc. So we're almost like we're scared of you, but we're not with the Prophet ﷺ. The Prophet ﷺ, where say the Umar was fierce, etc. The Prophet ﷺ was soft. And this is the way he was with people. Okay, so they felt that they could kind of speak to him like that, and he was okay with it. He would listen to it. But say the Umar, they're saying, how could you speak to the Prophet ﷺ like that? Subhanallah. Okay, so the Prophet ﷺ said that the best of you is the best to his family, and I am the best of you. So he said, look, the best of you is the best to his family, and I am the best of you. And no one honors women except an honorable man, and no one disrespects them except a villain. And these are kind of powerful words here. Sayyidina Aisha radiallahu anha narrates that the Prophet ﷺ said that the believers with the most complete faith are the best in the character, and the best of you are the best of you to their family. Constantly, you can see consistently we're talking about here, the best to your family. When asked how the Prophet ﷺ was alone amongst his household, so it's one thing amongst people, but how was he alone amongst his household? And he ﷺ, and Sayyidina Aisha mentioned that he ﷺ was the gentlest of people, smiling and laughing. Okay, he would play with them, but when the adhan was recited, it was as if he did not know us. Okay, the Prophet ﷺ never filled his stomach completely. When he was with his family, he did not ask them for food, nor desired it. If they fed him, he ate. Okay, You know, if they fed him, he ate. He's just not going to have demands. He accepted whatever they served him and drank whatever they gave him to drink. And take that example of us. It's like we're fasting, and it's almost like we're given a right that we're fasting. I've been fasting. When I get home, I need to have a 7-course meal laid out before me. Okay, and this is the Prophet ﷺ, who most of the time he stayed hungry. Most of the time he stayed hungry. He never demanded, food when he came. Okay, and I mentioned that it's how are you with your family, and it's stressed us so many times because we can be all pious. We can read nafil after nafil after nafil, not miss a single prayer, praying 5 times in the masjid, okay, fasting, zakat, everything, zikr, in front of people. But then when you get home, you're a complete different person. Shouting, anger, this and that, when you're with your family, that's how your true character shows. Okay, when you're with your family, that's what your true character shows. It seems that that's when I was speaking with my teacher as well. These things that it's one of those things, and I think is like with your family or when it involves money, that's when a person's true character shows. Okay, and hence why when I mentioned about the Prophet ﷺ, I think it was in his character in the second show. And we also mentioned saying that Umar saying when you praise someone, and he asks, have you traveled with them? And have you done business with them? Travel with them is that, okay, now you spent a lot of time with them. They can only put up a show for so long. Then the true nature will show. The true character will show. And when you've done business with them, because when money is involved, a person changes. A person changes and they will do anything and everything to kind of save their money. Whether you become lying after lying, justifying to themselves. As long as you can convince yourself, you convince your nafs. You convince your nafs that I'm right. And that's it, you'll go to any extent to kind of protect it. Okay? And then moving on then, actually, the other aspects is we have the Prophet ﷺ and how he was in the household in terms of doing housework. Okay? And when asked what he ﷺ would do around the house, it was mentioned that he ﷺ would be at service of his family. He did what one of you would do in his house. He mended sandals and patched garments and sewed. So the Prophet ﷺ, it was not a case of come home basically or whatever it is. Remember, the Prophet ﷺ was very busy. He gave time to everyone. He gave time to everyone. He milked his goat, etc. The Prophet ﷺ had to split up his time. You had delegation that would come to the Prophet ﷺ. Okay, they all wanted so much time. You had the Sahaba all wanted to learn from him. Everyone wanted time from him. He split up his time. He gave time to his family as well because that was their right as well. Yet still at home as well, even though he's had a tiresome day, etc. He's been doing so much work, whatever it is. When he comes, he'll still help out in the house. Okay, he's still help out in the house. It's not a case of there's a plate on the table, but surely I'm a guy, I don't need to pick that up. No, not that attitude. The Prophet ﷺ would do the housework. The best of creation, the Prophet ﷺ would do the housework. Who are you and me? What makes us so great? What level of weary said, I can't do stuff like that, I can't be doing housework. What's someone going to say? They're going to be looking down on me. What if the word gets out in the street, this guy's doing housework? They laugh at me. What kind of a man are you? Okay? We take example from the Prophet ﷺ. Okay? If anyone tries to laugh at you, the Prophet ﷺ did it. Let's see them laugh then. Okay. The Prophet ﷺ would do housework. He help out in the house. Take lessons from it. Those are the kind of things that you need to be taking lessons from. The Prophet ﷺ would take care of his daughters. Okay? We get one of the events where and it's a disturbing event actually because it's when the Muslims were being oppressed, and in Makkah, and this was after Sayyidah Khadija passed away. And one of the descriptions is that someone threw animal intestines into the household, and because it threw it into the household, it fell into the cooking pot, and which kind of what shows us that the Prophet ﷺ was cooking. He was cooking for his daughters, or daughter especially, Sayyidina Fatima at least. Okay, he was cooking for his daughters. He was kind of, he was bringing up his daughter. He was bringing up his daughters, taking responsibility. This is the Prophet ﷺ as a family man. He would go to his daughter's house when coming from. So if he's coming from somewhere, he would always go to his daughter's house. When his daughter Sayyidina Fatima would enter the room, he would get up. He would get up for her, hold her by her hand, and sit her down. Okay, hold her by her hand and sit her down. Like I said, there is so much more that we can continue and say about all this, but I'm just trying to get those key messages out there that we can then pick up and take from, and take heed and learn from. How was he with children? The Prophet ﷺ said that he is not amongst us that does not show mercy to the young and upholds respect for the elders. Okay. Anas ibn Malik said that he never saw anyone more merciful to children than the Prophet ﷺ. Okay. The Prophet ﷺ, he wouldn't ignore children. He would give them the attention they needed. Okay. If there was children there, it was not a case, they're only children, let's ignore them. No, he would give them the attention. He would play with them. He would ask them questions. He would make them feel wanted. Okay. This also actually, what does it do? It kind of helps to have a connection to the masjid as well. The child have a connection to the masjid. He would continually give them attention. And he would always kind of give them something like a fruit, or I suppose, or whatever it was, something sweet. He would give it to the children, or the youngest amongst them. Okay, youngest amongst them. We have so much examples and narrations of how going in the streets, the Prophet ﷺ would kind of run his hand through the hair of a child, and they describe how that child, when that child was in the street, playing in the street, you can smell the fragrance of that. The Prophet ﷺ had kind of put his hand through the child's hair, and that fragrance remained on the child's hair. There's one where I think it was a child that the Prophet ﷺ placed his hand on the child's head, and apart from that area, all the part when that child grew up and became old, that child, all the rest of his hair became white, apart from that particular area which remained black. Okay. So this is the Prophet ﷺ as a child, and we spoke last week about his grandchildren, and when he's leading the prayer, he goes into sajda, goes into prostration, and his child goes on his back, and he just delays it. He delays it for his grandchild. When there's so many narrations, he's giving a khutbah. And if his grandchildren come, he would kind of pick them up. He'll get off and pick them up and then sit back down, have them there. Okay, it's not like hush 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 kind of thing. I think it was Turkey there in the masjid. They have a sign up that if you can't hear, you should be able to hear children playing. You should be able to hear laughter or cries of children playing in the masjid. Okay, but at the same time, you got. I think it was one nation where the Prophet ﷺ almost kind of disciplined his grandchild. I think he was taking dates from what would call the zakat area, which the Ahl Bayt they don't have part of, and he kind of just told him off, saying that no, you shouldn't be having these. Okay, so you got that aspect as well of the Prophet ﷺ. A man once came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he saw the Prophet ﷺ playing with his grandson, kissing them, hugging them, etc. And the man looked at him and is there shocked, he's thinking, what's going on here? And he said, he goes, what are you doing here? And the Prophet said, well, don't you ever do this? Play with them? He goes, no. He goes, I have 10 children. I've never kissed them. And I played with them, like that. It's like, it's a case of we're men. We don't do stuff like this. We're not meant to do that. And the Prophet actually got quite angry, got upset, and said, what can I say about a man who has no mercy? What can I say about a man who has no mercy? So this is it. We see so many, and there's so much more, so many narrations of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how, especially with children, he would look after and look out for them. You know, when he goes orphans, etc. Be careful, etc. We spoke about, you know, the mercy as well last week. When he came to children, when he came to elders, when he came to animals, that, you know, donkeys, camels, whatever it is, don't load them too much. He's always concerned about. He's also concerned about the creation. He was always concerned about the creation. I mentioned at the start how he's consistently worried about his ummah. We have the thing of the, you know, the prayers that came about, 50 prayers to start off with. And I know Sayyidina Musa sent the Prophet ﷺ back to reduce them. But you think this was going on the back of the mind of the Prophet ﷺ? He looked at every opportunity to make it easy for us. He looked at every opportunity to make it easy for us. We have time and time throughout our lives. Throughout the month of... So Ramadan, we spoke about Ramadan, or you got Ramadan, you have certain other days where we say that, look, this is... we got this much reward, you do this much reward, we do that. Sometimes people see it as, oh, a bit skeptic, you know, yeah, okay. What is the purpose of all this? Is to, it's the Prophet ﷺ giving us, you know, asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us opportunities to increase reward for us, because He's concerned about us. He knows how weak we are. We're humans. We falter. We make mistakes. Okay, the kind of definition of human is that we're going to make mistakes. We're going to falter. But the Prophet ﷺ is keen that we kind of rectify it time and time again. Give us opportunities, that's fine. Even if you've done this, do this now. When we speak about someone committing a sin, what's the thing you do straight away? Do a good deed. Do a good deed straight away. You hear so many times, you know, people saying, oh, I can't. You know, they're reluctant to go to the masjid. Oh, I can't go to the masjid. I've just probably done this wrong or done that wrong. And I never pray. What's the point of me just going for the one prayer? And I think it's a lesson for us as well. So all those so-called Islamic people, the pious ones, don't look down on others, because things can change so much in an instant. To Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, things can change. So someone that's come to the masjid once a year, or just on Eid, welcome them. Someone that's turned up with a t-shirt and probably got a, you know, some I don't know, image, etc. on there, basically. Look down, look, you know, good towards them. Don't put them down. Someone's kind of turned up with the eating or whatever it is. Don't put them down. Don't drive them out. Okay? Be merciful. The Prophet ﷺ, there's so much. There was an example of a Bedouin who came to the masjid and urinated in the masjid. And the Sahaba was almost like heading towards him to kind of beat him up or whatever it is. And the Prophet ﷺ, calm down. Give me some water, I'll wash it. You know? It's because, and then he explained to him, we don't do this here. Because the Bedouin, he didn't know. For them, it was, you know, you just go to the side and that's it. Urinate, that's the way it would work. The Prophet ﷺ understood all this. He was merciful. And we gave example last week as well, and so many times he was merciful. Here as well, we're giving so many examples of how he is treating people around him. And I mentioned as well earlier on that your family is so important. Rights of your family. Then you kind of spread that out, and then you've got your neighbors. So everyone has a right on you. When you're in your household, family members have a right on you. When you're in the masjid has a right on you. When you're kind of parking up to go into the masjid, you need to be wary, where am I parking up? Am I going to cause a problem for someone else? Okay, when I walk in, if I need to leave my shoes, which we've kind of got away with at this point because everyone is made to keep their shoes in their bag. But generally speaking, when I'm putting my shoes, am I just putting them there and then off we go, so then people can stumble over them, fall down? When I'm going inside to pray, am I looking to go right close to the exit? You know, wherever possible, because I need to, you know, I come right at the end, and then I need to leave straight away. So it's a case of, you know, it's almost like I need to minimize my time in the masjid. Where you're getting so much reward, I look to minimize my time in the masjid. So you as close as possible to the exit. I guess so many times when I'm trying to tell people to move forward in the lines, I said, oh, I need to leave early. I said, don't worry, you can leave from there as well. The exit's the same. Okay, people have a break, etc. You can leave from there as well. It actually cause more disruption when people just try to be close to the exit for them, those coming in, whatever. So these little things we need to be wary of. When you're going to work, when you're driving to work, those around you on the roads, those are what you class as your neighbors as well. They have rights over you. You need to be wary of that. When you're at work, who you work with, they're of your neighbors in work. You need to be wary of that. So as a Muslim, we follow the footsteps of the Prophet ﷺ, and I stress so many times about loving the Prophet ﷺ, because when we love him, then we're going to imitate him. That means that we're going to follow the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ. If we're following the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, following his Sunnah, we're doing things in the best way possible. No one can then put you down for that. If you're following the Sunnah, no one can put you down for that, because you're doing it in the best way possible. Okay, I was just telling my kids actually yesterday, because it was my kids, or sorry, it was my kids. I was telling them. So we were sitting down and iftar time, and you've got the date stone. So if you finish eating, the sunnah way of doing it is actually that the Prophet ﷺ would he would place in the stone on the back of his two fingers like this. Okay, you guys can see, and you place it. Like they didn't have to place it there and then drop it into the plate. And what's the mercy of that? The mercy is that your saliva does not touch, because it's been in your mouth and your fingers don't touch, have saliva on there. Then you're going to go and start to pick something else, which will mean that you'll have saliva over your fingers, and you're going to pick this, pick that. That's not the way of doing it with the Prophet ﷺ. Every way he did something, it was in the best way possible. So he considered every aspect. Place in the back of his fingers, push it down. Now when he goes to pick again, there's no saliva that's touched the fingertips. There's so much little things that we can learn from. We're running short on time, so I just want to quickly mention the riddle before we leave. So today's riddle is, no retribution was sought this day despite being wronged. No retribution was sought this day despite being wronged. Head bowed down despite being the exalted beyond. No retribution was sought this day despite being wronged. Head bowed down despite being the exalted beyond. Now I try to, like I said, it's all my riddles are, the answers are within the seerah there. So either put them in the comment section or you can message me. People got, quite a few of them got them last week. Last week's riddle. So well done to that. It's just something to keep you a bit going actually. So like I said, we'll leave it at that. We're running down on time. As I mentioned about the last 10 days, make the most of them. Next week, inshallah, we'll probably talk a bit about Eid and a few other things on the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we will, like I said, count down the days, make the most of these as much as possible. Even if up to this point you have not done much, please, these, we don't know if we're going to be, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're going to get the opportunity to see Ramadan next year. Look at what's happening in the world. So make the most of these as if it is your last Ramadan, and wholeheartedly worship and do plenty dua. Do dua for me as well, and do dua for the community of the ummah all over, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for us. Okay, we leave it at that, inshallah. Inshallah, I'll see you next week. Sallallahu sayyidina Mawlana Muhammad wa barik wa sallim wa salli alayhi. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati amma yasifun wa salamun ala al-mursalin walhamdulillahi rabbil alamin. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.